Hello everyone, this is Remlays from 40k Theories, and welcome to the January 2019 edition of the Patreon Q&A sessions. As always, if you want your questions answered, then click the link in the video description below and help support the channel by becoming a patron. Now let's jump into the questions. Diego Flores asks, Happy New Year! Since you firmly believe that we don't need any more Loyalist Primarchs returning, correct? Do you believe that instead of Primarchs, GW should release more characters like Chapter Masters for all the first founding chapters, and Chapters of Renown? Yes, they should, considering that it's 2019 and we still don't have a named Iron Hands character. I think that's a little ridiculous. So, Chapter Masters for all the big chapters, Ultramarines, Black Templars, Crimson Fists, Iron Hands, Salamanders, etc. They should all get models, I believe. Allbrick asks, what's the craziest thing you found in 40k? The fact that load-bearing walls are heretical. Are there any Imperial tanks larger than a Baneblade? Yes, the Capital Imperialis. It's about 50 meters tall and can fit 4 Leman Russ battle tanks in its cannon barrel. Dale Bellamini asks, and I hope I pronounced your surname correctly, generally speaking, 40k is considered the most ludicrous of the common sci-fi universes. Is there anything in your mind that would cause 40k to jump the shark? Making Sigmar and the Emperor the same person. That would jump the shark. Kaiba asks, in light of what's currently happening on Vigilus, what are your predictions for the outcome of the campaign, or is it too early to tell? Considering that we still got about 2 books to go through, I think it's a little too early to tell. Mike Murdoch asks, Happy New Year, Remlays! Out of all the edible creatures in 40k, which is the most delicious? I have no idea, I've not eaten one. But I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say grox. Nice big juicy grox steak. Cooked rare, obviously. Mari Makanami asks, do you think Aramin or the Thousand Sons will ever get a redemption arc? No. What are your thoughts on creating a Patreon tier where subs could play games with you and chat with you on a monthly or bi-monthly basis? I have been considering something akin to this, but I need to fully upgrade my hardware first. I'm still using a HP Pavilion laptop. It's not very good for things like streaming and stuff, I'm afraid. Are there any documented Space Marines who also have the Pariah gene? Not to my knowledge, no. There are artificial Pariahs in the Grey Knights chapter with the Ferrymen, but as far as a Pariah Space Marine goes, no, unless there's some obscure bit of lore that I have not read, which is possible, I'll admit. But according to Horus Heresy Book 7 Inferno, whenever they attempted to implant Gene Seed into someone with the Pariah gene, it caused a psychic backlash which killed them instantly. Voice of the Emperor asks, who's crazier, Deathcore or Maccabian Janissaries? I don't know enough about the Maccabian Janissaries off the top of my head, so I'm gonna go Deathcore. Brandon A asks, do any of the other Primarchs have holidays for themselves? We have one for Sanguinius, and it is confirmed that Rogel Dawn too has one. Where was it confirmed that Rogel Dawn has a holiday? I've not actually read that. If you can comment down below where that actually was sourced, I'd be grateful, thank you. As for the Primarchs having holidays, considering that the 9 Loyalist Primarchs are effectively saints in the Imperium, I wouldn't put it past the Imperium to have a holy day for each Primarch. Do you think that to bolster even more allies to the Imperium, Dante and the Blood Angels would work out a truce with Trajan the Infinite? Debatable. The Blood Angels did fight alongside the Silent King, and the Silent King apparently has deep-rooted ties to the Blood Angels and Sanguinius, considering he has a death mask of Sanguinius on his head, for some reason, I don't know why. Possible future topic video. It's not admittedly impossible, but I would view it as being improbable. What kind of characters work for you in the Ordo Theoreticus? Check out the Homebrew wiki page for the Ordo Theoreticus. Darks asks, Happy New Year, got any new resolutions? Nope. If you could cast Friends, or How I Met Your Mother, or any other popular sitcom with Primarchs, who would you choose? I've never watched How I Met Your Mother, so I can't really comment on that. I last watched Friends back in the 90s, I believe. Does Brooklyn Nine-Nine count as a sitcom? Because that could be quite amusing with Primarchs, like having Captain Holt played by Rogal Dorn, the really dour and humorless type, and Terry Crews' character being played by Vulcan. I can just imagine now, Vulcan loves yogurt. It's stupid, but that could work. Opsic Stabber asks, since Blackstone can both amplify and negate psychic power when properly forged or refined, what does this mean for the relationship between psykers, blanks, and everything in between? My own theory crafting makes me think that blanks are not quite soulless, but instead a soul with an unusual counterforce. That's actually a pretty good point. I need to look into that more, I'm afraid. But that is actually a very good point and very interesting. From your knowledge, what would need to happen for a Titan Legion to be the rulers of a subsector of the Imperium? To my knowledge, that would never happen, because the Titan Legions, while technically independent, are still bound to the Adeptus Mechanicus, so a subsector would actually be ruled by the Mechanicus and not the Titan Legion themselves, to my knowledge. What are your thoughts on the prophecy of demise that relates to Malekith the Witch King? I'll be honest, I don't know that much about fantasy lore in comparison to 40k lore. I stopped playing fantasy a long time ago, and I need to catch up with a lot of it, I'm afraid, so I can't really answer that, I'm sorry. Parker asks, did the Chaos Gods Khorne, Tzeentch and Nurgle fully awaken during or after the Necron Old One War in Heaven? I've heard it both ways and don't know which is correct. Right, so this is actually a very complicated issue because of new lore that has surfaced, allegedly. So basically, according to the old Realm of Chaos books, Khorne, Tzeentch and Nurgle fully awoke by the end of Terra's Middle Ages. According to the 3rd edition Necron Codex, the War in Heaven caused malevolent warp entities to take form within the warp, thanks to the actions of the Old One's psychically sensitive races. But apparently, according to the book Wild Rider, and I say apparently because I've actually not read it yet, apparently the Necrontyr and the Old Ones allied against Chaos before the War in Heaven. So this kind of muddies the water a lot. I need to read that book to make a fully, have a fully defined answer for anyone, but it's just extremely muddy right now, to put it bluntly. Brentfeast asks, is it all possible for the Asuryani to create more craft worlds, or was that technology lost with the Eldari Empire? I think it was actually lost with a lot of the Eldari's knowledge and history. I've always had a theory that the Goths are the favourite of Gorg, who is brutal yet cunning, while the Blood Axes are the favourite of Morg, cunning yet brutal. Do you have any thoughts on this? It certainly seems feasible enough. I'll give it that. How likely do you think that the Fourth Sphere expansion will pull a Farsight enclaves and break away from the Tau Empire due to their newfound xenophobia? Well, there have been instances of members of the Fourth Sphere joining the Farsight enclaves, but as for forming their own breakaway faction, I don't see it happening. How obvious is it that I'm desperately trying to focus my questions on Xenos, since I usually ask questions related to either Chaos or Marina? Extremely. Albrick again asks, has a human psyker ever tried manipulating Wraithbone? Not a psyker, but if I recall correctly, Noise Marines have attempted in the novel Clone Lord because Fabius Baal's ship has a Wraithbone chamber. It has an Eldari Bone Singer locked within, but the Noise Marines have also started growing Wraithbone over their bodies and they sing to it. At least from what I recall off the top of my head. Daniel Dixon asks, are you making any more parts in the Quest for Knowledge series? Yes I am, but it's just currently on the back burner. The Evil Scotsman asked, is there any Xenos that have worshipped the Emperor? Off the top of my head, no, with the possible exception of the Chikero, considering that the Chikero are in this weird spot of being a Xenos race that is part of the Imperium. So they might do, but off the top of my head, no. Zero Hits asks, some Mechanicum members can get pretty excited and overzealous when it comes to recovering or stealing Necron technology. Are there any other particular Xenos technologies that some tech priests would really love getting their claws on? Any and all. Shadows of Ulanor shows that the Mechanicus teleported Ulanor out of its system just so they could actually, collect all the Orc technology uninterrupted. I'm sure the Mechanicus would also love certain examples of Tau Tech as well, and even Eldari, so any and all. And finally, George Crickmore asks, what is your reaction to the Black Library short story, The Last Council? Oh god, right. Right. So I've seen a lot of people say that this story proves that Malcador is a perpetual, which for those of you who don't know is someone who's biologically immortal. I dispute this. Because when Jagatai Khan and Malcador are talking, and Khan says, I know what you are, the Cursed Wanderer, the Last Sigillite, the Perpetual. A lot of people are taking this literally, and I don't think it's meant to be taken literally, I think it's meant to be more metaphorical. We've seen proof of the fact that Malcador ages like he's grown old and feeble. All you have to do is look at the story Two Metaphysical Blades. With the wording in The Last Council, I think it means more akin to being the unchanging or the unyielding one. You know, something more akin to a title. Because the Emperor knew more Perpetuals than just Malcador. I mean, for starters, he knew Vulcan, for one. Secondly, one of his closest friends was Olivia Sareka, who the Emperor chose to guard the Chaos Gate on Molech. She was a Perpetual as well. The language saying that Malcador is the Perpetual would suggest that he is the only one, which we know this is not the case. So, I interpret it as it being more akin to a title, rather than him actually being a Perpetual, if that makes sense. And that concludes this edition of the Patreon Q&A sessions. Again, if you want your questions answered, then click the link in the video description below and help support the channel by becoming a patron. Until next time, this has been Remlays from 40k Theories, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye.